Are you tired of watching shows that only give you general social media theory and expect you to figure out how to apply it to your own industry? Join us for this week's episode of Social Chatter, the industry's longest running social media marketing news talk show. Not only will you learn the latest breaking news, but you'll also gain practical advice on how to apply it. Now here's your host, Christian Karasevich.
Welcome everyone to Social Chatter, your weekly social media marketing news talk show. This is episode 216. Today you're going to be joined by myself and Wynn, and our guest is going to be Jamie Cohen. So two amazing people. I can't wait to talk about this week's show. Lots and lots of useful topics actually for you as a business owner to help you stay ahead on the cutting edge of social media. So, we're going to cover features that are either being announced or features that are already out there. They're just rolling out, and we're going to help you put them into practice for your business. So I'm going to go and bring on Ann, do a couple things behind the scenes. Then we're going to bring on Jamie and kick things off, and we'll have Phil back in the hot seat in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to go bring on Ann. Ann, how are you doing this week?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. It's great to see you again. Always
Likewise.
enjoy having you on the show. So thanks a lot for spending a little bit of your time today, probably maybe 30, 40 minutes with us. So who do we have on this week?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mentioned, we got Jamie, but Jamie, what else? What does our guest specialize in? Is she into social media? Is into blogging? What's your specialty?
Oh my goodness. I knew you were going to put me on the spot because I just met Jamie this morning, and she specializes in LinkedIn learning content, which is really cool because it's something I've not really gotten into yet. And I think we could all learn quite a bit. She mentioned she just finished this course, spent 10 hours yesterday finishing up a course. So I'm really interested in learning more about that.
So let's go and bring on Jamie, have Jamie give viewers or listeners a little bit more information about herself. And then we're going to kick things off. So Jamie, it's fantastic having you on the show this week. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be here.
So tell viewers or listeners, tell them a little bit more about what you do, your background. You mentioned you spent a lot of time on a course. We also talked about LinkedIn learning, I think, as well. So just tell viewers, a little about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Jamie Cohen. I am the creator of The Right Words. I help you level up your communication skills so you can connect more deeply anytime you interact. So I'm basically a speaker, a communication coach, and advisor. Anyone who works with me is someone who is looking to find a way to connect more deeply with anyone that they're interacting with, whether that is their family, their friends, their coworkers, if they're an executive at a company and looking to have a better relationship with their employees. The whole idea behind everything I do is helping people to understand that communication isn't just about using the perfect words at the perfect time, but it's about building strong relationships. It's about understanding what the people that you're speaking with, what they need, and what they want.
Got it.
And
you're right. It boils down to relationships, because regardless of what words you say, if they're the right words, if you don't have that relationship or it doesn't resonate with your audience, then those right words are not really the right words.
Exactly. So one of the examples that I give is that you can be an amazing speaker. You could be one of the most acclaimed writers or authors or researchers in the world. But if you're speaking to an audience in Mandarin and the audience speaks Portuguese, they're not going to understand you. They're not stupid. They just don't understand Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically that's the idea when you're communicating with anyone. What resonates with them? How can they most easily accept what you're saying? And then which words can you use in addition to that will help them really connect with you and your message?
Fantastic. So where's the best place for people to connect with you if they have questions on anything that you just went over? By the way, I love your elevator pitch there. It's actually perfect.
Perfect. I know.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, if you want to connect with me, I post most of my content on LinkedIn. You can find me at linkedin.com/in/Jamie-Cohen. Make sure that you spell Jamie correctly. Most people misspell my name. It's spelled like Jaime, Jaime. You can also connect with me on all social media at Jane Belaya. But the place that you'll be able to get in touch with me most easily, because I do get a crazy number of messages on LinkedIn, is Instagram. So I post content a little less regularly there, but I do post stories virtually every day. So if you want to get in touch, you have questions, you just want to get to know me, that's another great place to get in touch.
Fantastic. So, Anne, are we ready? I'm ready to kick things off for you.
Yeah. Let's rock and roll, my friend.
Where do you want to start? So we have Facebook, we got a little Instagram. Where do you want to go first?
Oh, let's talk about Facebook's Messenger Graph API. This is interesting because I think, and it goes along with, I'm speaking on a panel later today, and it's talking about data and how you can personalize things. And I think, if I am reading this correctly, this is a different way for you to communicate with your community, but also have it be more, I guess, hopefully personalized and not feel so much like a chatbot.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, fantastic. It's a fantastic update, actually. We've got quite a few things here. A couple of updates basically that are happening. So Facebook's going to start to give basically some of the people that are part of their platform, they're going to start to give them access to the Messenger Graph API, which basically then means you can do all sorts of cool things with Messenger if you have access to this API. Basically, it's drinking out of the fire hose and picking kind of what pieces of that you use. One such example, actually, that they're working on is this icebreaker feature. It's basically now for brands to be able to set icebreakers on their Messenger profile using the API and helping them reduce that friction. Apparently, this, according to Facebook, help them reduce friction and starting a conversation by surfacing common questions or topics of interest. Now, when I read this is what I immediately think of. I think of somebody goes to maybe say an email that somebody sends them an email newsletter. They open that email newsletter, and at the bottom, they might have an option that says, hey, if you're a beginner, click here. If you're intermediate, click this link. And if you're advanced, click this third link. Now, the benefit to that is behind the scenes, when you usually click those, it tags your account and it moves you from list to list to list. So it makes sure that you get on the right list. Mm-hmm. I think this is a very useful update, in particular. The fact that, they're going to have this functionality within Facebook Messenger. Also, no need to actually necessarily set up a chatbot to do this because it would be by default. What do y'all think about this feature? Jamie, what do you think about the Messenger Graph API? Do you think it's going to be useful? I mean, being able to sort of personalize the conversations that users are getting.
I think it's going to be pretty useful. So something that I always like to think about when I talk about messenger bots or have any sort of conversation is remembering from like 16 years ago when messengers, like when AOL Instant Messenger first came out, and there was this bot called Smarter Child, and you could ask the bot like what the weather was and like to search for things for you on the internet, and it didn't do a very good job. So it's interesting to see how far this has come. And now when you use a bot, it's almost like having a human conversation. I think that these icebreakers are going to help a lot with the conversation aspect of interaction with people when they're using when they have questions and they're looking for a specific answer. What I think usually happens is when it first starts, people will think, oh, well, I'm actually speaking with someone. And so that'll pick up some traction for a while. But then people will realize, oh, this is just the messenger getting smarter, and I'm still speaking to a messenger. So as far as usefulness goes, I think that's really kicked up a notch. As far as personalizing goes, I think that'll do really well for a while. And then once people realize that, again, this is the bot, I guess the popularity or the interest will go back to a baseline, which is fine. But I think that's usually what happens with new features.
Definitely. Anne, what do you think, by the way, about this feature?
And I agree with what Jamie was saying about how people may think that it's a novelty at first and then realize, oh, I'm still not talking to a human. I was just thinking about another brand that I know. It's a community, and she uses chatbots quite a bit on there just to answer just basic questions, because people ask her the same things all the time, just like they do other businesses, right? Like, when's the next event going to be? Where is it going to be? But she included a speak to human option on there. And then so people can choose that. But unfortunately, she's not available all the time to answer immediately. So then they're still kind of left hanging. So I'm wondering if this update may help that or benefit her in that sense. I don't know, but I like it. But to me, I'm still trying to figure out how is it going to be different from what they have now with the basic questions that you can set up with their chatbot in the back end. But as you mentioned, you may not have to do a whole lot of technical chatbot setting up on the back end.
Yeah, and that's the part that I think it's going to be the most useful for users. I think a lot of people, when you start talking like chatbots, and Jamie, feel free to jump in here. Like when you start talking chatbots, you start talking, messenger bots, like using these like very technical like term or what most people I think are technical terms. A lot of people I think might think like, oh, well, I need to be a coder, I need to be a programmer to do something like this. I know like using a mini chat, for example, which adds that human feature, for example. I know using something like that does help alleviate a lot of that. But again, I mean, Facebook also, they want to protect their turf. And so, at the same time, they don't necessarily want people using these third-party tools. So by adding some of that functionality, I think it'll help a little bit. But I think partly for me, at least for businesses, I think they need to just get, they need to get more smart with how they do things and the things they implement. This Messenger Graph API update, I think it will help not just reduce the friction, but I think it'll also help you learn more about the people that you're actually interacting with to help move them from different topics versus just saying, well, hey, how can I help you? And then having to kind of go, you eliminate the first 5 to 10 minutes of conversation because the customer, I think, is able to then pull that directly from, the messenger conversation, in my opinion. So,
yeah. And I think also another thing that is beneficial with this is if I ever have a question on some website and there's a live chat option, I don't love small talk in general. So small talk with someone that I can't see and I don't know anything about just doesn't really feel great to me. And usually when you start with a live chat, they say, hi, this is blah, blah, blah. How are you today? And they don't really care how I am. So I don't really want to answer that question. I just want to get my question answered. If we're on the phone or if I can see them, that's one thing. But having that interaction, it's just like a waste of my time. So I think this is really helpful because especially with the icebreakers, you can go through and figure out this is the exact question I want answered. And I can get that right away. And then also, Anne, you were saying that you can enter an option to speak to human. When you have more people interacting with the messenger, that's a great way to do testing and you collect a lot of data. And then be able to hire different individuals to be that live human, and they wouldn't have to do a ton of training because you already would have all the data they need. And here are the questions that people are asking the most frequently. And here are the sorts of answers that they're most happy with. So here's the sort of thing that I want you to study and be able to answer. So that way, when people reach out, you're prepared.
No, that's a great point because you're right. I mean, I use live chat quite a bit because I don't want to call an 800 number. I don't want to be on the phone waiting. I just want my problem solved via live chat, and it's so scripted, right? So so this is a great way for them to integrate some of that with going directly to the question you want answered without having to have a scripted conversation with a rep who basically is probably copying and pasting, hi, how are you?
Yes.
And you're right, it does feel so not natural is because you're not really speaking to them. And they try to make it as natural as possible, but hopefully this will alleviate some of that. And then you made a good point too, Christian, about Facebook wanting people not to use so many third-party platforms. So I'm thinking of Mobile Monkey because that's to me is the one that I think of often.
Yeah.
So what would that do to a platform like Mobile Monkey or a solution like theirs? Then is it not going to be needed? Is it just going to go away?
I think on one hand, like some of these tools, they do serve some usefulness. Some of these tools, for example, the one you're mentioning, like I think I signed up for I think it's the same one. I signed up for their messenger bot. And, I've gotten a ridiculous number of just messages from them, like interacting with them, and I'm like, you're basically just spamming me, and like, I really don't want to actually work with you because you kind of just have this like fire hose on. You're just sending all this, these conversations to me without really kind of knowing what I actually want. So I think again, it comes back to I think from a business perspective, like a business needs to look at it and say, well, hey, what do I have the time to actually do? using this bot. Like, for example, if Facebook gives me a bit of a pre-built option that kind of helps me move into the conversations better, maybe that's better than having a bot that is kind of just like automating a lot of things in your business that you need to actually have the conversations with the user, or at least, over chat, like with the live human. So Jamie, what do you think? Any thoughts?
I think it's a great supplement because obviously if you have a booming business or a huge business, or you're on your way up and you're scaling, you can't answer every single message. So this is a great sort of padding, so you can collect that data, you can give people what they want. But I still think that you should take the opportunity to jump in when you have a moment. So if you see someone asking a question and you're there, to just jump in and say, hey, this is whomever, and this is the answer that I can give you, and we can have this conversation. So it's a supplement, I think, that's really useful and beneficial. And also it will help people, even if they realize that it's a bot. I think having something that's more conversational, that feels more natural and less contrived, it makes it a lot easier to get what you want, but also to feel good about the interaction, even if you know it's not 100% real.
Yeah,
definitely.
Great.
So with it, I'm going to move on to the next topic. Anne, which topic do you want to go to next?
Oh, let's see. Let's spin the wheel. Instagram stories. You want to do that next?
Sure. Instagram stories. Yeah, we'll go to Instagram stories. So what do we have going on with Instagram stories?
Or I'm sorry. Or we can still stick with Facebook and talk about work groups.
You pick.
Let's go to Instagram. We'll come back to Facebook.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so
I think this is right up Jamie's alley, right?
Yes.
This is your wheelhouse. So I would love to hear more, because I'm trying to be more proactive and active on my Instagram stories.
So what do we have going on here? So we've got Instagram stories. We've got some updates. What are these, Anne?
Let's see. Good question. Hold on. Let's see. So Instagram is helping folks to utilize Instagram stories better, right? I think people jumped onto Instagram stories when they first got introduced really quickly because we were already used to Snapchat. And so that was good. But Instagram obviously has a bigger user base. But I think often we still see stories that are just not great content. I'm just going to leave it out there. And so this is a step-by-step guide to really help folks to use Instagram stories better and to better tell their brand stories.
Perfect.
So let's start.
Jamie, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is is this something that Instagram needs to roll out? Do you think businesses need some help with stories? What's your take?
I think that there are a lot of people that could use help with stories, because if you look at influencers, you see something that would be akin to like making your own home video versus watching a TV show. And these influencers make you feel like you're there and make you feel included in the conversation. And it's not because they have some mystical power that allows them to do this. There are specific steps that you can take to do that. So for instance, a few different things that they do is you'll see a lot of travel influencers, when they're going to different locations, they'll start with the phone facing down so you can see their legs either getting out of bed or out of a chair, or like walking on the beach, and then slowly move up to see whichever location they're at, which is sort of the way that your brain works. If you think like getting up in the morning is sort of like looking down, and then you look up and there you are. And that's something that anyone can do. It's something that takes practice. And the whole idea of stories is to include people in the conversation. So whether you are a business or whether you are an individual, you want people to feel like they're there with you and like they're important. So there's a lot of companies that are, their main focus when it comes to advertisement are those staple advertisements like you'd see on a billboard or on a commercial or something like that. But the more human you make it and the more interactive you make it, the more people are going to remember, because they remember how something made them feel, not like, oh, that was a cool graphic, but oh, this person was there talking to me and I can send them messages if I have questions. And I think that's another thing. So a lot of influencers you'll see won't have the option to write them a message. So when you look at a story, there's a little a bar at the bottom where you can make a comment and it sends the person a message, and a lot of them will remove that so you can share their story, but you can't interact with them. So I always recommend for businesses that you keep that open so that people have the option to send you their thoughts or questions or anything like that. Another thing, and I haven't gone through the entire tutorial, is that you can have lead ups. So your first, if you want something to look more professional, you can have something like you're seeing here with this like interactive picture, or just have a static like a static story. And Canva is a really great option when you're designing that. You can make something that looks really professional and branded. You can use your own colors, but you don't have to be a professional designer. There are a ton of different options. You can upload that and show people what you're going to be talking about next, or what you're going to be talking about during the day. So if you're doing a takeover, if you're on a location or something like that, it makes it more inclusive, because if you have an audience who maybe can't hear as well, or they're listening or looking in an environment that's really loud, now they know, oh, the next thing I'm going to see is this particular thing, and they're telling me this, so now I can enjoy whatever video is, regardless if I can hear it or not. That's a lot of information.
That's great. That's great. And I'm so glad you mentioned Canva, because it's one of my favorite tools, because I am not a graphic designer by trade, but I love to be able to use Canva, and it does help you create these really great graphics. And you're right about, I think people like stories. They're just not really sure how to best use them. Yeah. And then watching influencers is great. They're good examples, but again, if you're an influencer, your business model may be different from my small business mom and pop or my B2B business. And so a lot of them are still sitting there going, okay, well, this works for this influencer, but how's it going to work for me, for my business, for my brand? So hopefully this will help folks to really think about that.
And, I think you make a fantastic point as well. Just about the fact that people struggle with knowing how to create stories content. Like, what do I publish? And it's funny, because it's like, maybe it's not funny, but like, it doesn't, like, I don't understand what the holdup is, because all you basically need to do is look at other brands. It's the whole point of the whole, like, let me go follow another brand, that maybe follow a competitor, for example, look at what other people are doing and get some ideas. And like, if you're not sure what to do, well, hey, let me look at a bigger company, and I'm not necessarily going to replicate exactly what they do, but it might give me ideas of the type of content that I can or should be sharing. I was actually reading a very interesting graphic earlier. It was about TikTok. It was about like the average age of the user on TikTok, and obviously people will question, well, hey, who's the audience that we're kind of they're trying to like reach? And obviously it seems like it's a very younger demographic, but people are like, hey, there's people over like 60 on there. They were making up a pretty pretty decent percentage of user base. And then it's like, well, and it got in a conversation of how could somebody use this? And it was like an older lady, for example, it was just kind of, she was like being very like savage with like, her image of her like in the recliner, and then something else. And in the background, they had like a Beyonce like song that was playing with it. So it was a very good way. It was a very interesting take on, how TikTok can be used. So don't dismiss, just immediately that like, oh, TikTok, it's not my demographic. Look at what other people are doing. Because you can have fun and be playful, and give people a reason to want to follow along with your stories or your content, versus shutting the door immediately, getting on it because you don't know what to post.
Right.
Absolutely. And people consume content in different ways. They prefer different mediums. So if you are totally negating something because it's unfamiliar to you, you could be missing out on a great opportunity. So TikTok and LinkedIn are two big places that the environment and the culture has completely changed. And if you're not adding that into your part of your business plan, then you're going to be missing out, because now's the time to get into both of those.
I love that, Jamie. I'm going to quote you. People consume content in different ways in different places. So don't sell yourself short, basically. Sell yourself, your brand short by missing out on it. So I like it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, the point Jamie had also made about the comment at the bottom of the stories, I hate it when I come across a brand or story where I can't like type a quick little, because the emojis pop up and you can just click like or whatever. I feel like, okay, they don't want me to really interact. And so I think that does them a disservice. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Definitely. And Yeah, and I mean, for the most part, most businesses, they might do that because they are going to get flooded with a bunch of spam or a bunch of
Yeah.
comments that are just not relevant. So basically, it's a very fine line. Like you need to have it on, but you also need to maybe turn it off depending on, what kind of feedback your brand normally gets. Because
I'm thinking it probably would work well for like a mid-sized brand or smaller brand for sure, right? Like a large brand, say like Southwest Airlines or whatever. I get it. Why they turn it off? But they are also really good on social. Actually, their social team is phenomenal about being responsive to people. So I get it, not wanting to have all that spam or whatever else. But at the same time, it still makes you feel like, okay, they don't want me to talk to them.
Right.
No, you bring up a fantastic point on that, and it's the fact that like a company like Southwest has a social media team. I can speak to this as well. Like, with my work at IBM, like we were on a social media team. So like we had multiple people to be able to handle the work versus if you're a solopreneur or you're, running a business with just a couple of people, you need to be, you need to interact with your audience. Don't just shut it off just because, you don't want to address that part. Like you can't just like take from customers without giving back to them. And that might mean giving them a little bit of your time, but doing it in small doses.
Absolutely. And something a little bit off topic, but if you ever have an issue with a company or you need help with something, I found that if you want to get an answer right away, Twitter is the place to go. And a lot of companies will have entire teams of community managers. So maybe like 20 people, 30 people whose only job is to answer questions on Twitter. So I'm as all of these different platforms develop and become more popular, I am interested to see if more of these larger companies will have larger community managing teams for all of the platforms versus just Twitter.
Definitely, I think it's a good point. I think again, I mean, social, I don't think has reached a peak. I think a lot of companies still struggle with it. They struggle tremendously with it. Even large companies, I think at some point they will have to expand that, but they also need to. I think they need to also, for the most part, understand why they need to be expanding it. Because, and again, it's not really that hard because if I'm the business and I have for instance, I have customer support that handles phone calls. It's not hard to train those people that field most of your questions within your business. And put them on your social media channels as your, person who's responding on Facebook or the person who's responding on Twitter, or whatever, place that you're going to be receiving your messages at. I also think it's up to the company as well to make sure they're driving their customers to the right channels that they want them to go to as well, because, I'm glad you have all the channels, but if there's one place that you want them to get in touch with you, make sure maybe on your website, you put your contact page up and say like, hey, if you need an immediate response, here's the, give us a call, for example. If social, for instance, is maybe their second or third tier priority, then, make sure you state that as well on your contact page, which is basically what they're mostly looking for, the phone number.
Yeah.
So
no, those are great tips because again, if you're working with a smaller company or a solopreneur or just a very small team, it is difficult to see all that on social, or they haven't invested enough training or time into helping their team understand how to field those customer service support types of comments or tweets and whatnot. I go to Twitter all the time too for customer support because I tweet to Sprout Social or I tweet to Southwest and they respond right away. But again, those are much larger brands with entire teams dedicated to doing just this. And so that's a great tip to go ahead and put that on your contact sheet form or even in your, messenger replies.
Yeah. Lots of very useful things to think about, on how you basically get in front of your customer. And, to Jamie's point, like, she talks about using the right words. Like it's the same thing. Like you can be the most eloquent person. You can have the greatest setup.
So that's a great.
But you have to get in front of your customers and you have to tell them like what you want them to do, for example, versus like just assuming they're going to know what they need to do, for example, or not getting the right training on things. Like give them the training they need, for example, help them do the job better, get in front of your customers, and serve your customers. So any parting thoughts that we want to share on this Instagram stories tutorial, basically these tips that Instagram has started to publish?
I would also say these are good tips that they're showing here, but like you said before, I would go around and look at your competition and look at different stories that speak to you and try to emulate those, because what they're showing here is useful, but if you look at stories that are the most popular or the most interactive, usually the photo is going to fill up the whole screen. They're vertical photos versus the horizontal photos or their videos where someone's speaking with you. So make sure you do your research. Don't just take what you're given and say, okay, well, this is what they're saying to do, I'm going to do that.
Right. And if your content doesn't fit the space, that's another thing. Like a lot of people do this, you know, they try to take something for like vertical and they take a horizontal video and they try to stick it in there. You're cutting out parts of the video, for example, that might be useful. So like take the extra time to film it correctly. You know, like if it's a video, for example, and you film horizontal, and horizontal is great because, hey, it fills the whole screen. You can see it bigger and all that sort of stuff. But make sure that you create a separate version if you plan to repurpose it for the vertical aspect of stories. It takes what, like 30 seconds maybe to redo it.
Well, you know, we were taught for so long, video has to be horizontal, and now it's you know, for us who are old school folks, it's still a mind shift. And you're right, it's and folks want to take a shortcut sometimes too. Like, I have this content, I don't have time to reformat this or whatever. Let's just take the horizontal thing and stick it in there.
Yes.
It doesn't really work oftentimes.
Jamie, do you have any tips for viewers from that perspective, like creating content in the vertical or the horizontal aspect? Like maybe, you know, how do you approach it?
A little bit of both is okay, but I would focus on the vertical content because people are generally looking at stories on their phones and on the phone screen. So if you make the content feel native, people will interact with it more. They'll enjoy it more. So if you do have a photo that's in landscape and you put that in your feed, which does work, and you want to share that you had a new post, that's all right. Just always be cognizant of the colors that you're usually posting with. So your brand colors, what people are familiar with, and also making sure that you're sharing something that looks nice. You're not just sharing for the sake of sharing content.
Yeah. And don't spend too much. I would say this, don't spend like, it shouldn't take you hours of time
No.
to create a piece of content for stories. If you're spending over an hour, if you're spending like, I mean, I almost even want to go down to like 30 minutes, for example, it's like a max amount of time. If you're spending 30 minutes, maybe you're gonna do that on the first like couple that you make. But if you're spending 30 minutes, that's way too long to be creating one piece of content. You know, for the most part, like people are not gonna see that. Or the ones that are, they're gonna see it and they're gonna watch like a couple of seconds of it, and then they're off to something else.
Yeah.
So how long do you spend, Jamie, on content that you create?
For stories?
Mm-hmm.
It depends. So if I am creating videos, I usually just do that on the fly. But something that I think about when I am traveling, or like yesterday when I had the last day of filming for LinkedIn Learning, thinking about what do people want to see. And then if I don't have time to post something in the moment, I just film a bunch of video that I think would be interesting. And then I can go back through that and say, this one looks like it was the best, this told the best story, or I can go through and cut it up, because you can still edit video that you put into stories. So it just depends on the situation. But as long as you're telling people an actual story that they can follow along with, they're going to enjoy that. So that's something that I think about.
Definitely.
Yeah, great pointer, because that's what I do often too. I'll do the quick little videos and I decide which ones I want into my story, because I don't want to spend that time doing the text and all this stuff and missing that next point in an event or whatever it may be. I want to have a more cohesive story. So I'd rather just do the quick little video, save it, and then do it later.
Definitely. So by the way, for those of you watching this week, or listening, just a quick tip. If you do want to get our daily newsletter, before we move on to a Facebook topic here, make sure you go to socialchefs.com/daily. You can sign up for our daily newsletter. You'll get daily tips along with specific topics that we'll cover to help you learn more about social media for your business. Again, socialchefs.com/daily. And we also publish, like, maybe there's some topics that we don't get to in the show. We'll put those in the blog post recap that will also go out by that email. So you guys ready to move on to the last topic before we get to tool time real quick?
Yes. Let's talk about Facebook groups. and collaborating with your coworkers. So work groups, not groups in the sense of we're thinking of communities. This was something I'm still delving into and learning and figuring out how best to use it, because I'm a solopreneur, so I wouldn't really use this work group. So, but it's always a great thing or idea to know what I'm talking about when I'm speaking with my clients and whatnot. And you and I were chatting a little bit about it earlier, Christian, and I likened it to Slack, although it may be better. I personally do not like Slack. I'm probably one of the few who I'll say that. It's confusing. And so maybe this is a better tool, a better way to collaborate with your coworkers. But what I really love about it is that you don't have to be friends with them on Facebook to collaborate.
That's always been the biggest challenge. You know, a lot of people have been, they're very protective. A lot of people
Yes, we're very protective. As you'd mentioned earlier, Jamie, I mean, Facebook is, to me, it's still very much my personal space. And I am not friends with a lot of clients. And even when I worked in the corporate world, I wasn't friends with a lot of my coworkers and things. So I think this will be a solution for that.
What do you think, Jamie, about this Facebook work group types feature?
I like this because I actually once had a boss who would harass me basically because they wanted to be my friend on Facebook. And I said, this isn't really appropriate. There are pictures of me in my bathing suit there and pictures with my family. That's something that I only share with friends and family, and you're my boss. I'm not going to be your friend on Facebook. And then they would say, well, I have all this content that I was going to share with you, but I couldn't because we're not friends on Facebook. And which I don't think that happens to a lot of people, but what I do think is that there is content on certain channels that's easier to share on that channel. And especially if you aren't a digital native. So if social media is something that you are becoming familiar with versus having grown up with. This is a great opportunity to be able to interact on Facebook without have to sharing any of your private information. Now, I don't really put anything private anywhere now, so it doesn't matter where you connect with me. But for a lot of people, that's where they share pictures of their family or of their kids. And, that everything you put onto the internet is forever. And if you're giving other people access to that, then people, your boss or people that you work with have all these photos of your children, and you don't necessarily want that. And your kids probably don't want that either.
Right. And they don't really have a choice in a way, because it's like, oh, hey, this is a cute picture, let me put this up, versus like actually being able to approve that. Because again, the parent might not also think they're doing any harm by doing this, but but very useful feature. Basically, it only shows work-related info, such as your current job title and city, when your profile is viewed in this group. And it allows other group members to contact you on Messenger without needing to be Facebook friends. So, you don't have to, friend that person who just posts too much and clogs up your news feed, updates. And again, this is also not available in public groups as well. So very good feature, I think, that they're coming out with this. Do you think it's like, again, is it like they also have the Facebook at work feature as well? I guess this is a way to sort of put something in place to where if a business doesn't use Facebook at work, that, they can still let
utilize it. Yeah.
Right.
I think so. Oh, go ahead, Jamie.
Oh, sorry, go ahead. A lot of companies don't allow you to get on Facebook, and they may even block access to it. So having this as alternative access, so it's something that's more focused on business rather than personal, I think could be an asset.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And again, to kind of keep your privacy, but it's interesting. As we were talking about it, I was trying to think of if this was a way for, so I have a client who we've gone back and forth about trying to do a LinkedIn group just for their clients, their users specifically, or a Facebook group. They really kind of wanted to keep on LinkedIn. So I wonder if this is another tool to be able to utilize that for not necessarily your employees, your coworkers, but perhaps your end users of your solution, and have them in a forum. So I don't know. That just popped into my head as we were talking about it, because you don't have to be friends with them on Facebook, but it also gives you a little bit more control than, say, like on LinkedIn. It feels like every message is spam in a group. So what do you think?
I think that if there are rules in place, that LinkedIn is a really great medium for that sort of communication, because you do have that air of professionalism. So there's not a lot of places that people are going to go and potentially get really distracted, because everything that's on there is, I mean, there are people now telling their stories and sharing all this great information, but it's not the same sort of thing that you would see on Instagram or Facebook. And because it is such a supportive platform, I always suggest that people spend time there. And so I haven't spent a ton of time in the groups. I know that LinkedIn is kind of doing an overhaul to get people more interested in using them. But as far as the organization goes, if you're looking for, if people are having a conversation in the group, you sort of have to post it like a wall, like on Facebook. So it's like I guess a feed. So looking for, everything might not be posted chronologically. You don't necessarily know when people are interacting. The LinkedIn Messenger is still totally integrated into LinkedIn. It's not separate, and that can be glitchy. So I think that while they're working on building that up and making that more accessible, that this is a better option, because Facebook already has a very well-defined messenger that's a different. I mean, I don't always love that it's a different app, because I don't have Facebook Messenger on my phone. So if someone sends me a message, then I have to get to a computer to get on there. But the messenger itself is really highly developed and advanced. So you know that if you are having a conversation there, you're not going to lose anything. It's not going to glitch on you and something's going to disappear.
Definitely. And, and as everybody knows, hopefully, that Facebook, they are combining Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram messaging, or they're moving towards that. So to your point, yeah, like it is a little bit of more robust messaging platform. So a couple other tips, by the way, about this Facebook work group type feature. So for starters, you have to be an admin of the group to be able to change the work type, actually. So this is done by your settings menu on your Facebook group. Just go to the group settings option. So it's usually under the ... option, select group settings, and then look for the group type and select work. Now, the cool thing about this, once you do that, it's going to be available both on desktop and mobile. So it doesn't, so you're not like tied to just being on desktop to do this. You can change it via both, as long as you're the admin of the group. And the other cool thing is that you can switch back between the work type as well. And if you decide you want to disable the messaging feature, that's also available. You can have people opt out from the group settings menu as well. So iOS, Android, desktop, mobile, you pretty much get the whole gamut. And also they're going to be adding some more things as well to Messenger over the coming months. But that's the work group types feature. Anybody have anything else they want to share on this? Otherwise, I'm going to move to my favorite part of the show, which is tool time. Any other thoughts on Facebook work group types?
No.
Okay, cool. So what we're gonna move to tool time. And basically, tool time, what we do is each week we bring you 2 tools that we think can help you as a business owner. We don't advocate for okay, you have to have this tool. We like to bring tools that we know can help add value. Again, we recommend testing the tool. So maybe download the trial if they offer it. If you think there is usefulness for you as a business, you don't have to have every tool. For example, a carpenter is going to go build a house. He doesn't go and buy every possible tool that he needs. He buys the main tools that help him get the job done. And if there's a tool that can help save him time or save effort, help be more efficient with what he's doing, then it's worth maybe experimenting with that tool, but you don't need every tool that's available. So that first tool we're going to talk about today, it's called Searchie. And do what?
Oh, I haven't heard of Searchie before, so
I hadn't either. This is brand new to me, and I'm
exclaiming.
Yes,
here's the you'll get it. But what is Searchie, by the way? Ann, you want to tell people about that one?
Yeah, so I on a monthly basis go to Houston Social Media Breakfast, and Cami Hoyte is my tool guru. She always talks about different tools, just like you do every week on your show. And so because she's always exploring different tools. And she has a lot of video content like you do, Christian, with your shows each week. And she has video content from the social media breakfast every month. And so she wanted to find a tool that would help folks be able to search for the videos easily, but not just search for the video itself, the episode, because you can do that anywhere, right? But actually search through the video content, say, oh, I know Christian talked about this tool last week, this episode 216, but I don't remember what it's called. So they do a search and they're able to search for that specific piece of content within your video, which I think is absolutely mind-blowing and cool, because
it is pretty cool.
How often do you, you don't want to watch through the whole episode again, possibly. You just want to get to what you're looking for. And I think this is a great tool for that. I don't know if there's anybody else out in the market doing this yet. This was the first I've heard of a tool doing this.
So you basically upload your content from your hard drive or pull it from Facebook or YouTube, so forth. Okay. And it's going to pull in all these videos into this platform, and then you can quickly search through it. So basically it's a bit of a content repository. So instead of having, and correct if I'm wrong on this, please. So instead of having to actually go through, for example, like we have 216 episodes of Social Chatter, instead of having to try to actually figure out, well, which video did I talk about this tool or this topic? Like currently I would go to Google, I type in a search, I'd come up with the blog post and say like, oh, hey, we talked about that on episode 215. So instead of doing all of that work, I can go right to this tool, make it part of my workflow, and then basically be able to quickly search all my content, right?
Exactly. Because at first I was kind of challenged too. I thought, well, how's this different from any other search tool? And then I realized, it searches within your video for the content you're looking for, not just the episode itself. And so it sounds like it's a rather simple integration. There may be some stuff on the back end to help because there's a widget you'll need to install, I think, that to make it actually work the way it's supposed to work. But really from the very basic instructions that I've read, and they have a short webinar, they call it a webinar, but it's like a 2.5-minute video that talks you through how it works. The plans to me are a little expensive for probably a solopreneur.
Let's look at those plans
and stuff like that. But again, if you have a lot of content and this could be a valuable tool. It can pay for itself in what you need it for. And I think part of it too is, instead of you spending that time to search your blog post, Christian, you can go then find it easily and then perhaps be able to edit that piece that you want and then repurpose it for something else. So there is that too. I don't remember all of the pricing because I had looked it up because it was kind of hard to find. They needed to work out their website a little bit better, I think. They've got a great tool, but their website needs to be worked out a little bit better, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah, we are talking about the pricing, and I'm over here like, okay, how do I pick a plan? I'm
so there are two plans. It looks like there's a starter plan, and I did this because I did a screenshot to send to you. So that's what I'm looking.
Yeah, perfect. No, that's fantastic.
It's $67 a month, billed monthly. So you only get 5 hours a month. So that's like 5 video hours, right? And then the next plan is the business plan, which is $147 a month, and that's 15 hours. So there isn't anything unlimited yet as far as like enterprise level, possibly. But again, to me, I feel like, if you're a video content creator and you're not really monetizing yet, this pricing may not be, in your budget.
Right. I definitely agree with you from that perspective. It's a pricey tool, but if you are monetizing your videos already, it's a great organization tool. So to make it easier for you, if you publish, for example, we publish 4 to 5 episodes of Social Chatter a month. We also have social snacks videos. I mean, we're at like 10 videos there easily, maybe pushing up against that 10 hours that you get. But definitely, I mean, I think this looks like a very useful tool. Jamie, what do you think about this tool?
I think it's great to have an option to be able to search for the things that you need without having to spend an excessive amount of time going through your notes, or if unfortunately you're not that organized, having to search through everything that you've ever published in order to find what you're looking for. Being able to just type in the content that you remember and having it come up, it's really useful. I think the price is a little limiting, and a lot of companies now are offering creator subscriptions, so you get some of the same features as a business or enterprise might get. There's usually there are usually fewer, but you still have you're able to have that quantity. And then that actually benefits the company, because if creators are using something and they find it really useful, they're going to tell their entire audience.
Yes.
So I do think that the pricing is limiting, and something that they should consider is making different options that allow you to have a little bit more video for people who are just starting out, or for creators who don't have these large businesses.
And
well, I'm hoping as they evolve, because if I'm not mistaken, they're barely out of beta, or they may still be in beta. They'll understand their users' needs a little bit better and offer different pricing packages and the creator features and options. So I'm crossing my fingers. I'm going to keep an eye on this tool, because I think it's cool.
It looks fantastic. And I will say the other thing also, if you're watching with us live or on the replay,
evolve
for video and it works for audio. So if you're, for example, uploading a podcast, this could be something you put up on your, to search, basically, to quickly find the right episode. Again, the video aspect, if you create a lot of video, fantastic for that as well. But very useful tool. It's socialchefs.com/go/SEARCHIE. So that's tool number 1 for the week. So the second tool that we have, and then we're going to wrap the show up, is a tool called Adobe Premiere Rush. Now, what this one does is it makes it easy for you to create. So you basically can shoot your videos, you can edit them, and you can share them directly on your social media channels, all from the Adobe Premiere Rush for Video app, iOS, Android. It's a freemium app. It is an app and that means that basically it's a free download. You can use it with some limited features, and then you can use the in-app purchase option to basically unlock some of the features if you need them. But again, this is by Adobe. So I don't see anything wrong with the fact that, Adobe wants to charge you $10 a month for this app, because typically if you buy an Adobe product, Adobe products are pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Even Creative Cloud is expensive. I mean, so Adobe Premiere Rush for video. I like this. I like the interface. I anticipate it's going to tie into the cloud option as well that already exists. So, you don't have to be confined to, like you mentioned this earlier, Jamie, about Messenger. For example, if people need to do things on mobile or they need to be on desktop, having the option to have it with you is definitely something you're going to want to do, if you are creating a lot of video. And obviously we know people like to watch video, so you should be creating some video for your business. What do y'all think about this tool? Good price, good usefulness?
Yeah, I'm wondering, how easy is it to use for folks who aren't really savvy video editors or videographers? Is for the layperson to use? I haven't downloaded this tool yet, and it sounds like you've been using it a little bit, Christian. So
it works across also phones, tablets, and desktop. So that's something to keep in mind. I personally, if I'm going to edit on mobile, for me, I'm going to edit on a tablet or I'm going to edit on desktop.
Okay.
Phones, for example, if I'm sitting here, for example, looking at this vertical screen here, it can be a little bit confining if you're trying to actually, move through the timeline and basically, maybe want to split something. But I do like the fact that if you want to split video, it's using your fingers. So some people they aren't as adept with a mouse, for example. And so you can quickly select the clips you want to make your edits to, and make those edits, I think, much faster using mobile from that perspective. Jamie, what do you think about this tool?
I think it's great, because actually in my LinkedIn Learning course, one of the things I'm talking about is how to edit video mobilely, because for a lot of my LinkedIn videos, I'm recording those on the go, and I don't necessarily have time or want to go upload it into my computer, edit it, maybe change the quality of the video, and then load it back in. So I think this can be another great option for people who want their video to look professional, but don't necessarily want to use their computer. But as far as usability goes, Adobe products in general I wouldn't say are really for the layperson. They're usually for people who you don't have to be an expert, but have just a little bit of an understanding about any sort of editing. As far as the pricing goes, I do think that the considering that it's a phone, a phone app, it
Mhm.
should be something that's included with something else. So for instance, if you get a subscription, I have a subscription for Photoshop and Lightroom, and together those two are $10 a month. I think that's a great deal.
Right.
So for something like this, I think it would be worth it if it were combined with something else too. So if you have access to Adobe Premiere, which is already, I think, $20 or $30 a month, this
Mhm.
should be something that you get for free in addition. And maybe if this is something that you want to use on its own, and again, I haven't used this before, so it might be really powerful, and then it probably would be worth that $10, because a lot of software, like you said, Christian, is it's really expensive. If you were to buy any of these products outright, which I don't think they allow anymore,
Right.
but
Nope.
they used to be, hundreds, sometimes like
Thousands.
$1,000. So in general, in the grand scheme of things, I think $120 for the year for a product that, if it's something you're going to be using every day or every week, does seem worth it. Again, I haven't tried it, so I don't know how it functions as compared to other free or paid editing apps. But I do think it's great to always have lots of different options for editing content on your phone. Do they have royalty-free music? Is that included with this app?
That's a good question.
Check if they do, if they offer the royalty-free part. I will say I don't think they will. I say that though because typically, like when you buy Adobe Creative Cloud, that actually, if you want royalty-free access, that's actually a separate subscription on top of the actual service itself that they charge for. So it basically would be an additional service. But again, it's moving from the platform as well. So,
And I noticed it's only available on iOS at the moment. Do you know, are they going to have an Android option?
I would think they would. Typically, most app makers, they will launch an iOS version, because part of it is like, hey, you have new iOS devices that just came out. Why not take advantage of those beautiful screens and the cameras that they offer? I think at some point they probably will come out with the Android, but I think it'll probably be a little bit of time. They need to kind of get the user to really adopt this and start to actually then like implement it. By the way, to your question, Jamie, obviously, like, so you get unlimited exports. Let's see, I'm just reading some stuff here. So it works on iPhone, iPad, desktop, 100 gigs of cloud storage, $10 a month, with select Creative Cloud membership plans. So like if you get the Premiere Pro single app and Creative Cloud all apps. So it's included as part of the following Creative Cloud memberships. So if you get the Premiere Pro single app, that's one option, or the Creative Cloud all apps. So it's like you either buy it separately or you buy it with everything that Adobe's offering. So,
and it does look here like you can use parts of this app for free, and in that case, I think that's great, because there are other apps that are paid that probably don't do as much as Adobe Premiere does in its unpaid version. and for someone who is, especially now with like the iPhone 11 Pro that takes such clear, crisp, and interesting video, it's going to be really useful to have an editor this powerful that's on your phone that doesn't necessarily take a lot of space, because most Adobe products are all cloud-based. So they don't take up a lot of space on any of your devices, which I love.
Definitely. And the other thing also to mention, kind of your point here, like, it's a free app. Like, why not download it, test it out, and then decide if it's something that you need. And don't just immediately say, well, hey, I'm going to upgrade to it for $10 a month, for example, because maybe, if, like I mentioned, if you are using some of the Adobe products as part of the Creative Cloud plan, but you're like, hey, you know what? Maybe I do need to up my video game. I need to get a professional editing software, versus like saying, oh, I've been using iMovie for a while, for example, because it does have a ceiling. You will hit the ceiling really quickly. If you think you need that, test it out, and then consider upgrading your entire plan to get it included, for example, or just get it separately, give it a try. Again, try it out, give yourself a deadline. If you get like, say 30 days, test it out for 30 days, see if you like it, and then, purchase the annual membership, for example, or, again, just use it one-off. I think that something to kind of consider, but, fantastic product as well. But that is the other tool we have for this week. It's Adobe Premiere Rush for video. Again, free with in-app purchase.
I just downloaded it, so I can't wait to try it.
And by the way, I like the points you both mentioned about like just the fact that with some of these apps, like if you're, for example, not currently editing on mobile, why not start with the free apps that are typically available on your device, or start with a free app overall, get used to it, see if you actually like it. Because I will say, working on video editing on a mobile device, it can feel very confining if you've got to like tap in certain places and like your hands have to work a certain way for other things. If you're using iPads work great for, or tablets of any sort. They work pretty well actually for editing, because you have more space to work with, and you can quickly move the pieces around that you need. Jamie, do you have any tips or any tips for people about like doing mobile editing?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check out Premiere Rush. A product that I use constantly is InShot, because they offer royalty-free music. You can do a bunch of different editing. You can add, and the process is tedious, but you can add captions, you can add stickers, you can add GIFs. There's just you can add effects. There's really a lot that you can do. Also, another thing is there are a lot of cool effects and things you can add by recording video in Instagram stories or in Snapchat or even in TikTok. TikTok has a lot of really interesting editing features, masks, effects, all these different things that you wouldn't have on a basic editor. So I highly recommend trying a lot of different products and seeing what works best for you. And even though it's a little bit more complicated to pinch and edit things on a smaller device, it is something that takes practice. And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. And having the opportunity to be able to edit on the go is something that's really valuable, especially if you don't have a computer that's easy to bring around, or if you don't have an iPad or tablet or something like that. Being able to have versatility in the way that you edit and the way that you create content is always something that I recommend for people, especially for LinkedIn, because with LinkedIn video, I'm editing and creating a lot of video on the go. So I want to have access to that. And also, if you're not on LinkedIn, I always say you should be, because now is the time. 2 years ago was the best time. Last year was a really good time. And now is the second best time to get on, because next year it's going to be very different.
Yes, 100% agree with that. You probably maybe if you've ever watched any of the shows, Phil and I are always bagging on LinkedIn about how they've been behind the curve with doing things. And like they're finally starting to turn the ship, doing some fantastic things. Microsoft is finally starting to change a lot of things about LinkedIn. So if you've ever been, just really like, oh, LinkedIn's this digital Rolodex, still thinking about that. It has definitely changed. They've launched some amazing features, and they got a lot of really great things coming out.
Yes.
So with that, by the way, I want to thank everybody for watching this week. Jamie, do you have any tips, by the way, that you want to, like maybe a last tip that you want to share with viewers, something they should take action on today? Maybe it's a topic or something else.
Sure. So we didn't get to talk too much about LinkedIn, but some action that I highly suggest that you take today is start getting active in the LinkedIn community. Because of LinkedIn, I have created a network of tens of thousands of people. I have launched a business that I love. I am a full-time entrepreneur because of the community I've built on LinkedIn. And right now, LinkedIn is the way that Facebook was in 2010. You have this ability to grow organically at an exponential rate. And that's not something that's going to last forever. It's already harder now than it was 2 years ago, but there still is that ability. There's 630 million people on LinkedIn, and out of those people, fewer than 1% are active. So it's not too late, and it's also a great place to test content. The way that I actually discovered what it is I wanted to do and which business I wanted to launch was by testing content on LinkedIn and seeing the reaction that I got to that. So I do highly recommend that. I also recommend, I have a course coming out through LinkedIn Learning. The release date hasn't been set, but it's about how to get comfortable on video. So if you're trying to do live video like we're doing, or if you're creating video in general, it's going to teach you how to become more comfortable and confident and create content that viewers actually want to watch.
Oh, awesome. Do you know when it'll be live?
No, so LinkedIn Learning doesn't give you, they usually let you know about the release date a month or so before, or like a few weeks before. It's very secretive. So I don't know when it's going to be released yet, but as soon as I do, I will be sure to let everyone know, because I think it's a course that's more for people who haven't really done a lot of video, so it's a little higher than a beginner level course, but definitely not advanced. But there's a little bit of something for everyone. So even if you are a seasoned video creator, there will be something that you'll be able to garner from the course.
Great. Well, I will connect with you on LinkedIn because I'd love.
Yes, I would love that.
I'm going to be doing some digital marketing workshops through General Assembly here in the future, and
that's amazing.
I certainly add your course to the resources that I share with attendees, because that's part of it, is like giving them tools to go out and do this on their own.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So thanks a lot for joining us this week, Jamie. So just a quick question. If people want to get in touch with you, so obviously they can find you on LinkedIn. Remind them again what the best place to connect with you at is.
Yeah, so if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can find me at linkedin.com/in/Jamie, spelled like Jaime, Jaime, -Cohen. You can also connect with me across all social media at Jane Balaya. One of the best places that isn't LinkedIn to get in touch with me is on Instagram. I'm there updating stories every day, post content a few times a month. So please do reach out, and thank you both for having me on the show. This has been a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. And I hope that everyone who's watched has too. I'm sure they have.
I definitely will say, I mean, you shared some amazing tips this week. For those of you who are watching or listening via the podcast, we will have a blog post recap that goes out tomorrow at socialchefs.com/SC216. That'll have links to all of the topics we talked about, some that we didn't talk about. For example, Facebook now combining all of their brands under one umbrella. It'll also have access to the Alexa flash briefing as well, if you need a very short and concise summary of this week's show. And also don't forget, next week, join us 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, facebook.com/socialchefs, or youtube.com/socialchefs. We'll have guest Michael O'Neill on. So we're going to talk a little bit about some shortcuts you can take to help your business. And these are not like shortcuts that get you to the finish line faster, but they're shortcuts to help you be more efficient with how you work. So join us next week, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on next Thursday. And thanks a lot for joining us. Jamie, thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for inviting me to be back on. I always love being on your show and learning lots of things every time. And I'm so happy to connect with you, Jamie.
Me too. Thanks, Ann.
So be sure to connect with Jamie and with Ann. We'll be back next week. But thanks a lot for joining, everyone. We will see you all next Thursday. Bye.
Bye, everybody.